Hello, my name is Bob Ganzak, and this is Motivation U, the podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Hello, my name is Bob Ganzak, and this is Motivation U, the podcast, and coming to you live from Celebration Point, actually inside the coach's podcast room. As you can see, our great wall behind me there, and at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and don't forget Visors upstairs, the rooftop bar. With me today, awesome conversation we've been having for the last 45 minutes. Is business entrepreneur, business owner, chef, everything else that goes with it, Peter Yñigo with Miapa, and a number of other businesses that we've talked about already. So, Peter, welcome to the show. And
thank you for having me, Bob.
I love having you here. I've enjoyed so much of the conversation already that my mind is like, we should have been taping this, as we went on. But Peter, you have an interesting background of getting to where you are today. Where did life start, and how did you get to Gainesville?
So from the beginning, I was born in Cuba. I was born in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, to be more exact, a place called Bayonda. This is the countryside of Cuba, and the sugarcane fields and the tobacco fields and so on. We migrated to the United States in 1980. Sorry, yeah. 1980. Something called the Mario boat lift, and the May 10th, 1980, we came to this country. And my first experience of this country was being put in the Orange Bowl, what used to be what was now today the Marlin Stadium, and that was my first time that I ever saw a football field, and had the amazing welcome of this country.
An American football.
American football, yes. It doesn't get any better than that. Yes. So we settled in Miami. Started I believe it was my third grade. Did a full year of intense English in the city of Miami. I think that the school board over there decided that's what they were going to do, and we settled in South Florida. My grandfather owned a gas station. He had been here since the 50s, and that's pretty much did the whole thing: Boy Scout, baseball, everything Miami kids do, and graduated from the great high school of Miami High, which is Gloria Stefan and all those people. So that's kind of the start for me.
Did you go to school with her? Or?
No, I think she's older, but not by much. So yeah, I'm class of 90. Yeah.
Now, if you would like to ask Peter a question or take this down a subject matter that you would like to learn more about, you can find us, right here on Facebook Live. Just type your question into the comments section, and we'll find it. You can also find Motivation U, the podcast, on any one of about 39 different places. It's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Apple. Wherever you find your podcast, you're going to probably find us there. It's Motivation U with the letter U. You can click on subscribe and follow and like and be a part of the show and have a lot of fun. We got 15, 16, 17 shows already in the can someplace back there. You can go back and watch those. This is 19. Evan Miller, our producer for each and every one of them, just shared with me. So we have 19 already there, and an amazing thing. So, Peter, a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists say that it's our first 5 years in life that kind of determine what our personality and who we're going to be is. So those first 5, 6 years of your life were in Cuba, and what impact do you see in your leadership style and in your business style that those first few years of your life has really had on, the majority of your life as an adult now?
Yeah, I don't, it's funny because the first 7 years of my life, I have photogenic memory, like 100% memory of it. Like I knew where I lived. I mean, to the point that I got to go back to Cuba years later, and I was able to rent a car and drive to my house.
Wow.
So nobody telling me where, and I knew where the house was. I knew where my grandparents' place was, and so I knew that. About my personality from childhood was very questionable. I questioned everything. So that, I think, it was natural, my personality. I questioned everything, and I had maybe a solution or try to find a solution. That was my childhood. As seeing businesses or seeing, it was zero. I lived, literally, you would go to school, and I would come back, follow the train tracks that brought sugarcane to the sugarcane mills. And I followed the train track from school to the house and might drop the books and climb a mango tree. That's what I did every day, and play in the fields. My memory as a child in Cuba was no toys, nothing like that, but it was very happy life in that sense. Now, once you came to this country, then, I hit age 7, turned 8 here. Now I'm thrown into this grandpa running a business. My uncle's running businesses, and I'm thrown in that style of life that it's just hard work. So I'm pumping gas at 8.
Entrepreneur.
Okay. So I'm back in the day, Bob, you probably recall this, you checked the tires,
Yes.
you checked oil, you checked everything on the car. It was full service, not
Wipe the windshield.
Yeah, it was all in Jersey still kind of mentality. Yeah.
Like the Allman Brothers had an album one, wipe the, when you check the oil, pump the gas. I mean, it was like the name of their.
So to me,
album.
at age 8, I was already working. By the age of 10, I was already swapping tires on Cadillacs. I was doing everything. I mean, I recall getting tips, making 50 cents. And to me, that was great money. And I can do that at a young age. So I would do that because my school bus would drop me off at the gas station from school because mom was working, dad's working, and we would just sit at the office, do homework, and then I would go work. Wow. So from a young age, I knew that. So hard work was never an issue for me, and very questionable of everything. So if you talk about early childhood, I think that's what I saw. Grandpa and everybody working very hard, and I think that stuck with me. Then from then on, it's just I used to go in the summer, work with mom in the factory. So I've been working since a very young age. So.
Did the whole family come to America at that time?
So grandpa on that side was here. He came in '59, right before Fidel. Mm-hmm. He was military. He was a captain in the Air Force in Cuba, and in '62 or '61, it was the Bay of Pig.
Correct.
He went back with the Bay of Pig, got caught, and spent 2 years in jail, and then they got released with some deal, and so he settled in South Florida in the '70s, got a gas station, worked his way up, and so he's the one who paid to bring us over in the Murillo boat lift. My other grandfather had owned a grocery store in South Florida, had not had that same luck, and had settled in Tampa, and at a very, very well-known grocery store called La Teresita in Tampa, and he was the butcher there for many, many, many years. And that relates to our, probably down the road, some of our stories, so how I ended up with some businesses. But so yeah, Dad worked. Grandpa passed away. Dad had to the business kind of split between the brothers, and so he ended up just walking out with his toolbox and having to start from zero, get a mechanic shop, and that's how they supported us.
So this program is about leadership, and as you and I were sharing before we came on live, my thought always was that we have some of the greatest leaders in our communities are living down the street from us, running the Dollar General, running, restaurants, and you don't have to have the Bezos or Musk or Jobs or whatever your name is, Gates, Buffett, whatever. You don't have to have that last name to be a great leader. What were the foundations of forming your leadership skills as you grew? What were some of those foundations, and who were the individuals that really influenced it, either positively or negatively?
I like I said, it never felt like I had someone that mentored me or anything. I saw work ethics from a very young age. That means work hard and you get results. But I never saw it as a leadership. It was always more like grind and do that. I swore to me that I would do anything in this world except be a mechanic. That was just way too much work. Your hands are always beat up, and I want anything to do with a mechanic shop. So, but it did give me that sense of hard work. But the leading part, how did I develop that? I don't know. I was always a good speaker. I always spoke very fluently or very easily, and I always questioned a lot of things. So to me, it wasn't, you cannot do that. It was more like, why can I do that? Or why can we find a solution? And that was always set even at a very young age. My mom always told me everything out of my mouth was why, but why not? But why not?
Yeah.
That kind of
that rebellious side of it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you never wanted to be a mechanic.
Yes.
Reason being, maybe we mentioned it, maybe we didn't mention it. That's what your dad did.
That's what my dad did. That's what my grandfather did.
So you saw it all the time, and you saw that grind coming home all the time. And
yeah, I mean, owning the gas station, maybe me and the wrench guy, no. So I did have that in my mindset from the early age. Yes.
My dad, in disclosure, my dad owned a printing shop that he inherited from his father. His father started it in Detroit. Many, back in the 30s or whatever it was, and so my dad, the natural tendency, only son, I was going to come in and take it over, and I went in there and worked there for a few years, and I just saw that it was not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, all the print was done with lead, and so my dad was constantly covered with ink. It was 24/7 all the time. The presses had to be running in order for you to make money, and the same four walls that he looked at all the time. I didn't want that in my life. You know? So I know I broke his heart by not staying there. Yet, that was just something that I had to reach out. So, how did you take the path into the food industry?
So I'll run by it very quickly. So I graduated in let me see, 84. I watched the Olympics, and I watched this American guy win a gold medal on a bicycle race called Alexi Graywell. And Americans would never win in bicycle racing because the Europeans were control. So it was very strange. And I said, Dad, I want a bike. And I must have been like 12 or something like that, 13. And I got a road bike, and I started riding my road bike. And I got a job at the bike shop, wrenching, mechanic, so I can buy parts. That's how the owner would pay me. And I got hooked with bicycles and read every magazine and everything. So quit baseball. I was playing baseball at the time, and I got hooked with cycling. Ended up joining a team. Ended up flying to Europe, racing my bike in Europe. Spent 2 years in Spain. Came back. Spent a couple of years in Central America. Raced South America. Raced all over the Caribbean. But by the age of 20, 21, Mom is like, "You're not going to college. what are you doing with the bicycle racing? You need to figure something out. And she's like, yeah, you're right. And I was definitely no Lance Armstrong. And and
That's a good and bad thing.
probably, yeah. And it was that era. Like I'm the exact same age of the Armstrongs and the Hincapie and all those guys. Mm-hmm. It was an era of that a lot of people got into the sports. But I joined a company. I was managing a bike shop in South Florida at 19.
Okay.
While I was still racing, and I was the youngest manager. I recall negotiating with my boss, and it's like, it was like $30,000 in sales or something, and I was like, "You give me a percent?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "If I do 50, would you give me 1.5?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "How about if I do 70?" He's like, "You'll never do 70." So all right, then give me 2. So he gave me 2. The next month we did 77. So it was always, and I had 6 or 7 employees. But then I knew I had topped. Now at the age of 20, I'm quitting the sport. Have the job, and I'm thinking,
I'm washed up at 20.
The only thing I'm going to do from here on is either own my own bike shop because it's all I knew, or do something else. But there happened to be a company in Miami called J&B Importers. They were a national chain owned by a French guy and a Greek, and they have warehouses all over the country.
Okay.
And I went and talked to them, and they said, "Yeah, we can pay you $8." Here am I making good money by 19-year-old cents or 20. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to take a pay cut because I can grow with these guys versus I'm topped out." So I went and joined them, started doing purchasing for them, China, Japan, Italy. I would do all the purchases, and then I got an opportunity to do sales, and that's where the money was. And my territory they gave me was Jacksonville and Orlando.
Wow.
So Gainesville was right in the middle. So we ended up in Gainesville. All my friends had come to school here in the 90s. And so I knew Gainesville. I would come visit. I would come to bicycle races around the area. So we ended up here. And then this is now 95. And I'm doing sales, and I'm on the road.
What type of company was
J&B? Is a parts distributor.
Okay.
And I'll share their style. So J&B had 2 main warehouses, Miami and Fontana, California.
Okay.
And then from there, I would purchase this, open POs, and then we would distribute from those POs to the other one. We had Fort Wayne, Birmingham, we had Colorado, Denver, we had Washington, Seattle, and then I would distribute from those warehouses. I would bring containers in, and then I would distribute from there.
Okay.
So I'm like, this is beautiful. So their mentality was next day product, and they did parts, not really bicycles, but parts. And one of my best friends is actually the son of one of the owners who now runs the company, and we still stay in touch with. So I joined the company, and I went into sales, and we moved to Gainesville. 95. Wife today we were dating, and she didn't have really anything to do. And I said, let's come up with a little business for you while I'm doing my sales. We don't need to make money, just to keep you busy. And we come up with this idea to open up a grocery store. And we opened up a place called La Aurora Latin Supermarket. Back then it was called Latin Market because it was only 800 square feet. And I thought, hey, I go down to Miami for meetings. I'll just load up the minivan worth of product so she can sell them at the store. Well, the first day she opens, she does $1,000. The next day she does another $700 and another $800. And I realized I cannot fit $10,000 worth of merchandise in my minivan. So I called Dad, and I called my dad mi papa, or it means my dad, it means mi papa. I said, mi papa, I need help. He goes, so that's running a mechanic shop. And I said, I need you to go get some product that Aurora's going to order. So he got his minivan, got a U-Haul truck or U-Haul trailer, got dry ice, and he went around to all the little distributors of food and picked up all my product. And he would drive Friday.
And this is mainly Cuban product.
This would be, the grocery store is mainly Hispanic. So I had Colombian, Venezuelan, Brazilian.
All right.
And I had a little bit of everything. She had a couple of coolers, and she would display. He would go by a pastry place, buy already made pastry, and he would buy Cuban bread. And he would drive. He would finish work on Friday in the afternoon at the mechanic shop, close it down, load up everything, and then he would drive up. 3 a.m, I would get the wake-up call. We're here. Jump out of bed, and we would go to the grocery store. Mind you, I had just come back from Savannah, Georgia, doing
driving
sales.
Around doing sales.
So we would unload everything and put the bread in little bags, put the pastries, put everything. Aurora would go back to sleep, and I would stay entering all the invoices so she can have prices in the computer and all this. And I would do this till like 9 in the morning. So by then, she's already gotten up. Mom has gone to sleep with dad, and she would make coffee, bring it in the morning to give to customers.
Wow.
And I would go and get some sleep. And we did that for a few years.
So it was mainly weekends? I mean, she was open all the time.
She was open 7 days. She was open. Yeah, she was.
Those weekends must have been.
For me,
explosive.
It was, I would work from Monday through Friday selling bicycle parts. Dad would mechanic from Monday through Friday. And then I would do, then the weekend, I would just help her. And then so she can get some sleep, I would come in the afternoon and help her ring up stuff. So we did that for, this is 99. So then people kept coming into the store and saying, where can we go to eat? And there was a couple of restaurants in town. One shut down recently that had been around for years, Emiliano. There was a place called Café Tropical. There was a couple of little Hispanic restaurants that had, but some of them closing down. And people kept saying, where can we go get food? We can buy groceries, go home and cook it, but where can we get? And I started talking to Aurora, and I was like, we should open like a little cafeteria, like right next door here. And one day, on Tuesdays, I would do my bicycle sales here in town. There was like 13 bike shops here that I would visit. And I see this place closed down. It used to be a Kentucky Fried Chicken with a drive-thru. And I walk in, true story. I walk in, it's a gentleman from Bangladesh. He owns all the KFCs here in town. And he owns gas stations in Connecticut, and he's a super nice guy. And I said, hey, I would like to rent this place from you. And he's like, I don't own it, but I can sell you the equipment as long as it doesn't say KFC. And so I said, okay, how much do you want for it? And he's like, go home, think about it, give me a number tomorrow. I said, okay. So I come and I'm thinking, he's got a cooler, he's got a hood, he's got a grease trap. It would cost us easily, $30,000 to do all this stuff. This is, mind you, 2003 now, and or 2002 when we started planning this. And I go back and I said, hey, all I have is $30,000. It's probably not enough, but that's all I have. And he goes, are you a big corporation? I was like, no, my wife owns a little grocery store. We want to open a Cuban restaurant. And he goes, just give me $10,000, pay me whatever you want. And I wrote him a check right there. So I said, wait, don't give me a check, call the landlord. So I call the landlord. It's like, hey, I'm a little grocery store. I want to open a Cuban restaurant. And he's like, no, we don't care. So whatever, we don't care. And I called him back, the Bangladesh guy, and I said, he doesn't want to talk to me. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, he doesn't want to give me a lease. He said he's got you hooked for another year. He wants a big corporation to come in here. And he said, hold on. He calls his attorney and goes, is my lease transferable? And the guy goes, if the kid has a good credit, yeah. So I said, yeah, I have good credit. So the guy transferred his 25-year-old lease from KFC over to me. And the next day, we're in business. We're opening up a restaurant. Wow. So, which the landlord could have just negotiated his lease and given me a higher lease. But no, I got a 25 Kentucky Fried Chicken lease, which I wrote till the other day almost.
Where is that? Where is that?
This is a 34th Street location.
Okay.
And why the name? We named this restaurant Miapa. And the reason is Dad had been helping me bring groceries, and I call him that. Aurora had the name on the grocery store. And I thought, hey, it would be an honor to name it after that.
We're talking to Peter Yñigo, which I loved the little video from, what was the movie that you were sharing with me?
The Princess Bride, Yñigo Montoya.
I like that. We're talking about, an incredible journey. If we talk about leadership, sometimes we walk into a restaurant or we walk into a grocery store, or we walk into any business, and we think, wow, this guy's got it made. But how did he make it? And that's what we're learning here. Part of leadership is the journey, the journey that gets you there. It's not just leading the people. Hey, we make mistakes. We make mistakes within our own companies many times. Yet, when we can go back and look at the journey, we can usually correct those ourselves or get outside help. And talking to you, Peter, is just awesome. I do want to mention, we have some Dale Carnegie classes coming up here at Celebration Point. January 25th, Peter's going to be in that class himself, and I'm looking forward to working with you inside of Mr. Carnegie's laboratory. Evan's a graduate. As you know, Freddie Weeby's a graduate, is somebody that you get to work with. But that class will start January 25th here in Gainesville at Hotel Indigo at Celebration Point. And would love to have you. It's 8 weeks long, one night a week for 8 weeks. You can go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com to sign up. Just go ahead and register there. Your name will come into me. I'll contact you, and we'll have a conversation about it. Also have a class starting in Jacksonville that same night. One of my partners in life, as far as Dale Carnegie world, will be teaching that, Tim Shoptaw. But that will be also, you can find that on the jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com website. So we have a lot of things coming up, and I'm looking forward to working with you. So back to your story. I'm really interested in that the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because right now, what was the background in your wife's life that opened her up to be an entrepreneur?
That's funny. She didn't want to. She's like, I said, let's open the grocery store. There's a few Hispanics here. There's no product that we can get. Back then, there was nothing. Now you can find in some of the even bigger chains. She was not into the grocery store. She didn't want to do that. For her, she wanted like a shoe store or hair salon. But it took me a little convincing, and then she agreed on it. And so she was there for those few years. And, I think for me, it was a couple of things for her. First, she came to this country at older age.
From where?
From Cuba also.
Okay,
born
wow.
in Cuba. But, barely spoke English. We signed her up at University of Florida English Language Institute. She took 2 semesters there, got her English, and then I wanted her to feel proud of owning a business. I wanted her to feel proud of being somebody in within a year, when it came at least with the Hispanic community, everybody knew who she was. Till today, they know who she was. She's not just Aurora, she's Aurora, the owner of the grocery store. And I wanted her to feel that important of owning your business. And by the time we hired somebody we wanted Sundays, and it's been a couple of years now that we hired somebody for Sunday. Now she had an employee, and now she knew about taxes, and then she knew about credit card fees. So for her, this is all new. And so to me, it was more about her having a purpose and a pride of owning her own little store. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you meet? We have 2 minutes before we take a break.
Yeah.
So in a quick.
So a teammate, cycling teammate that I'm a dear friend of with still today, is married to her cousin, and we met there at her house. She had just landed in this country, and it was an easy sweep because she needed a ride, no cars. But yeah, we met in Miami, and 6 months later, I tell her, I'm getting this opportunity to do sales, but I have to move. And her answer was very quick. We're already dating. We're already pretty serious. And she's like, I'm not doing long distance. So it's either I go with you or this is over. And I was like, no, you're coming with me. So.
Probably one of your early best first decisions.
Yeah,
right?
she put me through a few of those.
Does she still work in the store today, or
no? So in 2003, we found a manager,
Okay.
And she went and opened the restaurant. Mind you, she had worked at a restaurant as a server in Mexico while she flew Miami or Cuba to Mexico. That's the way she came. Spent 2 years in Mexico, and then she came to this country. And that was the extent of our experience in the restaurant industry. Aurora working 2 years as a waitress. Dad had no experience. Mom had no experience. We had a cousin that worked many years at a restaurant doing Cuban sandwiches, and we convinced him, brought him over. We found a chef. We found a cook from a very big chain of restaurants in Miami, convinced him. It was easy to convince people that were tired of the craziness of Miami to come to a peaceful Gainesville and then this restaurant. But I convinced him, telling them it was a little cafeteria, and then we opened the door, and this restaurant has a line out the door. Aurora's going crazy. I'm in Jacksonville selling bicycle parts. I can't help her. So it was a hit. It was a success from the beginning. So,
Awesome. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll come back and touch on some other things to really get into some of the food, too. With Peter Yñigo of Miapa, La Aurora, and some other companies too that
Yep.
I did not know that you were a part of. So we're coming to you live from here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point inside the Coach's Podcast Room. This is Motivation U, the podcast.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Hi, Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Hello, my name is Bob Ganzak. We're back here with Peter Yñigo with Miapa, La Aurora, a number of other companies here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Celebration Point, lovely place, and inside the Coach's Podcast Room. Love being here. We were chatting a little on the break just about some of the different things that are going on, and the last thing we left with was that you were hiring a chef to Miapa to bring in some of that Cuban cuisine. Now, my daughter-in-law is first-generation American from Cuban parents. I believe, you know, as we were talking about how you came over at age 7, you may have been in the same grouping that was coming over with Mario and his wife. Which would, I'm going to have to look that up at the end. But my granddaughter just turned 1 back in August, and they had a great party, and it was kind of interesting to see all the Cuban cuisine. Half of it was all Cuban, half of it was all Syrian, because you know, my son's got a lot of Syrian blood in him. So seeing those two foods there, as you brought in that chef, Peter, what were some of the dishes? How did you drive the menu for Miapa?
Yeah, that was simple because that's the only thing I've ever eaten. Like, you know, so mom, aunt, everybody, this is what we ate every day. Not only this, but the restaurants that we, you know, like growing up in South Florida, I didn't go to steakhouses. I didn't go, you know, if we were going out to eat, you would get stuck going to Cuban places. So we would visit Cuban restaurants, and if at home, that's all we cooked. It wasn't like we would tonight we're having Italian. No, tonight we're having rice, beans, and we're having something. So that was the tradition. So I grew up. That part was super simple. We did need help in the part of bigger portions, amounts, and a chef. So my mom came and helped us at the restaurant. My aunt came. The flan today is mom's old recipe. The all those. And aunt, my mom is no longer with us, but my aunt stayed. She just retired, so she had been cooking at the restaurant and overseeing everything till just I think less than 6 months ago. She at 70, she finally said, "Come on, aunt, you're good to go. You're fine. We'll be good." So we brought a chef in, we brought sandwich prep, and then we started hiring. And it was going through that curve of the mentality that I had, and the mentality that I have is I wanted to bring the culture of South Florida to Gainesville, but I wanted to do it in a friendly environment that didn't feel so overwhelming that if you were non-Hispanic or non-Cuban, you felt out of place.
Yeah.
And that was the key for me. Like, Aurora, my wife, wanted to play salsa out loud, and I wanted to play maybe a Celia Cruz and something more mellow, that if you didn't feel like it was all Spanish around you, the kids spoke English, so it felt, but then we're sitting in this college town, and you have a lot of kids from South Florida, and you have a lot of kids from Tampa, and you have a lot of kids that, the boyfriend is from Puerto Rico, and they knew, and it was a hit from day one. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I can tell you that first part of where you were saying about if you're not into that culture or understand that culture, that you can still eat there.
Yes.
I was first told about miapa, and I was just thinking about this as you were talking. Probably 3-4 years ago, I was working with another hotel in town. Of course, this had not been built yet. I was working with another hotel in town, and the young lady, I had mentioned that my son was engaged to, or his girlfriend at the time was a Cuban girl. She said, "Have you ever eaten at miapa?" And I said, "No. Where is it?" And I'd seen the billboard, I believe, going up 75 in Alachua there. And so I stopped on my way home that day. And I will tell you that at that time, and I've been there a couple times since, but they explained everything to me. Because I told them, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea what anything is on the menu. I have no clue. And so the people took the time to explain that to me, and the food was awesome. I mean, I love going back.
Yeah. Our vision, the way we have it written, is it's Cuban food for all. So our goal is, culturally, to have a restaurant that is casual Cuban food that you can bring in and bring with family. And even if you've never seen or had a Cuban sandwich, or you've never had a flan, or if you've never had anything, you can be from the country, good old boy, and you still feel welcome, and you still enjoy it, and you expand your culinary in the sense without going too far. That's our idea.
Peter, that you bring up something that has always challenged me in that thought process is there's a lot of people that might go to Publix, and I'm not talking bad about Publix, but they might go to Publix and buy a Cuban sandwich.
Yep.
And they love Cuban sandwiches because they have this Cuban sandwich at Publix. In reality, they've never had one.
Correct.
Correct. And that is just because you call something, it doesn't make it that.
Yeah.
And that was something that, because I always thought I loved Cuban sandwiches, so the first thing I ordered was a Cuban sandwich, and then I realized that I had never eaten a Cuban sandwich.
Yeah, it's when it comes to Cuban food, you got to understand the heritage is Spanish, and the heritage is Creole, or Cuban American or Cuban African. So that were brought into the island. So that mixed. You have a very Creole kind of food that is from heritage from Africa and so on, and then you got the Spanish, and then they mixed it. But then you have the immigrants, the people that immigrated into this country, which were food that was born from Cuban immigrants, but necessarily not from Cuba. And it's kind of like the pizza, where was it here or was it over there?
Yes.
And then you have immigrants depending on the city. So a Cuban sandwich today from Miami is totally different from a Cuban sandwich from Tampa. Why? Because the Cuban immigrants in Cuba, in Miami, were only Cubans, but the immigrants in Tampa had a lot of Italians. So the Cubans immigrant there created a sandwich like the Ybor that we sell, that if you taste it, the bread tastes more Italian. They have salami in there. That is not the traditional sandwich from Miami. So we try to cover that. We try to cover the history behind it. And then you go to have a Cuban from Key West, and it's Key West. So what do? They put lettuce and tomatoes. They try to make it into a club, and that's another one we offer. So we're trying to cover. People have expanded. There's Cuban immigration in New York. There's everywhere. So
I have a dear friend, Dominic, that owns Pizza Time in downtown St. Augustine. And being from Italy, I do challenge sometimes, Dominic, if you're watching this, I do challenge sometimes to understand you, but because sometimes the broken English becomes totally broken and we're back and forth. But he has shared with me like the different nuances in pizzas, but food's all over Italy, which is just fascinating. I could sit and listen to him talk for hours and hours and hours because it's always, I'm learning something different. I'm learning something new, which that's kind of what we've done here today. Rolling back to leadership.
Yep.
What challenges have you seen in your world as far as leadership, with different generations, different cultures, different nationalities? Gainesville is quite the melting pot of what our entire society could be or should be or is. How have you seen some of those challenges and how have you conquered them or have you conquered them?
So Gainesville is unique because we are in a college town. So unique in the sense that we only have staff for a short period of time. They're going through college. So you may have them a year, max if you're lucky 3 years, and then they move on. So that's the first challenge. You're turning staff when it comes. The other big challenge is, it's culture. So right now, Miapa, as a company, I believe we have 16 nationalities. 16 nationalities. So it's from 16 different countries. Everything from Morocco to Lebanon to Israel to Brazil to Jamaica. It's like it's all over. And we make them wear name tags with their flag. And once so that was the first thing. And then lastly is, we love to promote within. So our leadership is, you can grow in the company. So you can come to college here, get your MBA, and move in to be a manager. And the way we treat that as leadership is, it may not be what you do forever, but it would look a lot better in your resume that you have 3 years experience running a multi-million-dollar store with 70 employees when you go get that next job. So even if this is not what you're going to do forever, it's the perfect, and that's how we get them, and that's how we get them to stay. And then when it comes to entry-level jobs, then you're talking about immigration. You're talking about people that come here that are doing office cleaning and so on, and you're saying, you're better than that. Let's move you, let's train you, let's get some language, let's show you how to do stuff. And these are, I have staff that have been with me 15 years, 18 years. And they started doing Cuban sandwiches, and today they're my managers at my central commissary. So that's where I take the most pride.
That is really interesting, and it just brings up so many different thoughts about building that brand for yourself. I mean, when we look at resumes, if we see Publix, Chick-fil-A, we go hire that person. That they know the right way to do it. And what I hear you saying is you're building Miapa as that same generational type of thing to put on their resume, which is great branding.
Yeah, and even for the ones that are not going to stay in the hospitality industry, the way I kind of explain it to now, I kind of, before it was you're there, but now it's like I train it to my managers or even my district manager so she can explain it is, you got to get these young kids here, sophomores or juniors, first time away from home, and they're trying to get into law school or dental school, and they know they're not going to be serving for everything. But the mindset is, if you cannot serve or you cannot do this job well, what makes you think you'll be a good attorney?
Yeah.
You know, so this is so simple, as you think it is, do it well, be proud of it, and you're going to be proud of, you're going to do your next job. And that mindset is, I'm going to come in here, do a good job, make my money, go through college. The other big thing is we push the family feel and that part of leadership. I've learned that we go through semesters or years, and I look at 2019 or 2003, our first team. Our first team till today are still the same kids that hang around. Like, I go on vacation with my 2003 team.
Wow.
I go on vacation with my 2004. I go to weddings with my 2007 team. We've flown all over the country, all over the world to go to weddings of staff that worked for us, so because we stay in touch. So in the sense, you're not, how you build that friendship in college, here they're building friendships,
For life.
I saw a picture the other day. It was 7 girls. They're all babies. They're all in baby showers. These were my 2012 team. That makes...
It's an interesting standpoint. We're talking to Peter Yñigo from MIAPA, and we're going to talk about some of the other companies that he owns also. And we're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point inside the Coach's Podcast Room with MotivationU, the podcast. You can find us like on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or any of like 39 or... If there is a place to find a podcast out there, you'll probably find us there. So it's really, awesome to have you. And if you have a question, please put it right in the comments section at Facebook Live. But, one of the things we were talking about, and you kind of mentioned it, is that view of building that integrity or building that vision from the employee standpoint. If you think this is easy and you want to go on to law school or any place else, what's also interesting is to look at it from the back standpoint of the law school or the med school. When they look at that, these are certain foundations that a lot of young people don't get. I mean, MIAPA, Publix, Chick-fil-A, I'll mention them all in the same name because that's what you're building. That's kind of what, I encourage young people to get involved in Dale Carnegie program. There are so many Dale Carnegie graduates out there that are now, managers or recruiting managers or CEOs or whatever their role is. And when they see a resume that comes through and it has a Dale Carnegie graduate, especially if it's multiple programs, they go, whoa, those are certain soft skills. I don't have to teach those individuals. They already know it. And so that's interesting to look at it from both ends of that. You mentioned another part of your company, the commissary.
So we have today, MIAPA has 3 locations.
Okay.
We have 3 little satellite stores inside the university that are part of the group too. But we created something called a commissary. So basically, we have a centralized place where we do baking and we do all the butcher cuts and all the pre-prepping and seasoning and so on, marinating and things ahead of time, and then they deliver. That is a separate company for us. So this is a company that does a lot of the prep work to our specifics.
How many employees do you have within that?
Company-wide, I think right now it's 182. And that commissary, I think it's 22.
Okay.
Our biggest location, it's 75 and so on. And the grocery store is 11 employees. And then the other ones hover around 40 or so.
I am going to stop at the grocery store before I head back to Georgia today.
It's amazing. It's grown. We moved it, expanded it quite a bit from the original.
Where will I find it?
It's next to Ace Hardware Store across Ballyhoo University and 37th 3721 West University Avenue.
Right. Cool.
La Aurora Latin Supermarket, and it has everything when it comes to Hispanic. If you want to cook something different, or you saw a chef do a real cool plate, we got it all. It could be Peru, it could be Brazil, it could be whatever.
I look forward to
So, company wide. And then we also created in the last couple of years a management team. So the company, we created a separate company that handles all the accounting services, all the HR services and all that. And then the restaurants pay a percentage for those services. And that's another business.
Ride
for
your
us.
bicycle anymore?
I think I rode 6 months ago. I got about 10 bikes, so it's not because of an excuse of not having a bike. I love it. I still follow it. I'm in touch with every single race. It's time.
Do you have the bike at home with the video or?
I got all of that, and I got one phone call. I just called Mitch, which back then was my office next to me, the son's owner and of the company I worked for, J&B, and now, of course, he heads this massive company. They're up to, I think, 16 warehouses. But I call him up, and I need you to send me a trainer. He's like, you're never going to ride it. It's like, send me a trainer. And, of course, it sits in the garage.
Oh, that's a good story. That's fun to listen to. So back to the campus. You said you have two small.
So the University of Florida.
Do you work through Aramark?
Yes,
there?
yeah.
Okay.
So Aramark contacted us. They were trying to do, I guess, make it more fun for the kids, more options, especially they have something called Gator Corner where they do all the food court, the kids that buy the program.
Right.
And they said, we want to offer something they're more familiar with. They know your brand. How about if we give you a little corner? We, at the commissary level, you prep the food for us, and they have their own kitchens and so on. And so we created a little miapa inside their food court. And then they wanted to do a restaurant alley, or a local restaurant alley, and then we're inside the Rights Union. We have a location.
So you are inside the union.
Yeah,
right.
we're there, I think, on Tuesdays.
Now their office used to be in the basement there.
Yeah, it's now upstairs, like in the Rights Union. And then lastly, they have a little cafeteria at the Orthopedic Center right here on 34th Street, and we do our Cuban sandwiches under our brand, and they'll toast them right there for you, and we deliver those daily to them. Mm-hmm.
That is remarkable.
Yeah.
Just think of where you started.
Yes,
Peter. Tell me from the, like a parent, how proud you are of your children as you watch them grow and conquer their fears and everything else. A company, an organization is the same way. And tell me what that inner feeling as a leader of that group that has now, from a young man that was born in Cuba to having stores on the campus at the University of Florida. Tell me about that experience.
Bob, I'll be completely honest, and maybe I'm just sometimes hard on myself. In my mindset, I haven't accomplished much. I need to accomplish more in life. But I'll give you a quick story. Tuesday night, we had our Christmas party, and we had a little masquerade party for the team. We closed the restaurants early, and I sat at a booth, and I see all these young girls and kids, and they're all having a great time and all that. And I sit at this booth, and I have this young kid come to me and say, "Hey, hi." It says, "What location do you work on?" And I was like, What location do you work on? It's like, oh, I work in the kitchen. I started like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, well, I'm Peter. I'm actually the owner. He goes, the owner of what? And it's like, of the restaurants. So he didn't, it gets to that level. I started losing, like, being in touch with everybody and meeting everybody. It's starting to feel like I'm growing, and it's starting to feel. But then I go back to 2003, and I recall scraping KFC grease off that equipment for 2 days straight with my bare hands. I can still smell chicken 2 weeks later in my hand. So there's a difference, and people don't realize you grow in a company. Now you have 100, and then you have bookkeepers to do work for you and so on, and you forget that you scrape grease for. So it's not as easy, and we still every day go through different things and meetings and struggles. I think we can take this to a lot more multi-units. And I think I can take my staff and make their life better every day, and that's my main responsibility.
One of the most interesting things you've said to me was how you want to set your family up for the future, and your employees.
Yes,
and that is something that a lot of people don't look at. I've worked for people who didn't care about anything but themselves, didn't even care about their own family.
Yeah, I maybe I'm unique in that sense, but I take more pride in knowing that one of my staff bought a house. It's my top, or getting a new car. It shows. Yeah, I get emotional. I get emotional because it shows. I get pride when I get the call first to say, "You got to see my car." Yeah, that's great.
I visited my son and my daughter-in-law this past weekend down in Naples, and my little grandchild, Sophia, and it was remarkable to me as I was sitting talking to my son. I said, "Well, Matt, I haven't seen you for a month or so. What's some great things that happened?" And he told me that his top employee just bought a new house in Orlando.
Yeah.
And
it's a great feeling.
And that he that to me, I didn't have to say, he didn't have to say, "Dad, what's wrong?" He knew I was just proud of it because
as a leader,
that's great.
As a leader or a CEO of a company or something, you have the responsibilities to have money in the bank to pay the bills. You have the responsibility to make decisions to grow the company. But when you get 2020 get hit with COVID and you're shutting down all the dining, and the mindset in me is we gotta make sure we can survive this. But I'm not thinking I gotta survive this so I can pay the bills. I'm thinking I gotta survive because I have 180 families living off this. Even the college students, these are very special kids when it comes to college, because if you're a college student accepted to University of Florida, accepted to law school, and you still need a full-time job to support yourself, you're not coming from a wealthy family. No. So those are special kids.
I have a stepdaughter that is working at Meldon Law right now, will graduate from UF and wants to go on to law school, that is in that
even let's say even the ones that the families could support them, and they choose to not put the burden on dad or mom. Those are still special kids.
Definitely. Yeah, and you think about the growth in the years down the road. My coming to Central Florida was in 1995. I was part of a team, the managing partner and owner of Wind FM. Mm-hmm. So I put that radio station on the air in 1995, 95.5 in Ocala, 92.5. We jumped on in 1996. And other companies have owned it since then, yet it is the exact same thing with pretty much the same logo that a friend of mine drew freehand in Michigan back in 1995. And every time I come to town, I try to flip it on and listen to it, and you look at that and you see how other people have taken and grown it and just made it bigger than life, and that's something to be proud of, And that's what you're doing with your company and your organization. The growth is just endless.
Yeah. Things that have changed for me as an owner and leader is you spend so much time running the company, and lately, either I'm getting older, I'm getting more mature, I'm starting to change my mindset. Is I got to spend more time developing me so I can run this company better, because there might be a time that I'm not good enough to run my own company. And this is Dale Carnegie, or I belong to a group of CEOs that we meet once a month and we brainstorm our issues with the team of other, and I hear their stories. Yep. That has been those kind of classes, those kind of courses has opened my mind, and then I can help my team better. So I'm trying to take one day a week to just watch videos and watch things for me, like develop my own self. And I think that's been the biggest change in the last few years. And I'll start your class next month, and that's huge. And I'm not bringing my top leader. I'm bringing my weakest leader to your class.
So one of the things that we've been together with Peter Yñigo today from Miapa and La Aurora and other entities, and one of the things that really will stick with me about this hour that we spent together was the tears in your eyes when you were talking about your team. And that's the type of leadership. And the other part is that you have to keep growing.
Yeah.
Whatever it took us to get us to where we are, is no longer good enough to keep us there. Somebody is always nipping at our heels. And we can't expect others to grow if we're not willing to grow ourselves.
100%.
So, appreciate you being here today.
Thank you,
Thank
Bob.
you very much. From Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, inside the Coaches Podcast Room at Celebration Point, for Evan Miller, our producer, for my guest, Peter Yñigo, my name is Bob Ganzak. This is Motivation U, the podcast.